Hey guys, Mr. Cooney here to talk about chapter 3, part 3, that is, of Mice and Men, officially called Tensions in the Bunkhouse. Just to kind of review the plot before I go into the questions. The chapter kind of pretty much occurs entirely in the bunkhouse, right? There's a lot of tensions between various characters. Carlson gets annoyed at the smell of Candy's old dog. He pressures Candy to have the dog put down. Candy eventually gives in. Carlson takes the dog out and shoots him with his handgun. His grief is momentarily relieved when he's left alone with Lenny and George and learns about their dreams to buy a house. And he kind of gets in on that. He asks if he can join them, offers to pay more than half the supposed cost of the house because he's got a bunch of money he got as compensation for losing his hand in an accident on the farm, right? So that's kind of a surprise. So their happiness about that's kind of interrupted by Curly, who comes in and he is frustrated about people not listening to him. Maybe people tell him to shut up because they're annoyed about him chasing people around, asking where his wife is all the time. He can't stand up to any of them except Lenny because he seems like he's an easy victim. So he attacks Lenny because he thinks Lenny is laughing at him. An altercation between them ends with Lenny's face cut and bruised, but he grabs, after George finally says, Lenny, get him, he grabs Curly's hand and appears to have crushed all the bones in his hand, but they convince Curly not to say anything to anyone because it would be embarrassing to him that he was hurt and bested by, the mentally disabled guy. Okay. So we might think to ourselves, what kind of foreshadowing and theme is going on with the whole thing that seems to be repeating with putting something out of its misery, right? It seems like an unpleasant thing to have to do, but we've seen a couple examples of it, right? Between the puppies and the dog and things that are going on with Lenny and stuff. Okay, so the first question was near the beginning of chapter 3, number 1. George and Slim agree on the negative consequences for men who, quote unquote, go around on the ranches alone. What are those consequences? How might this explain how George travels around with Lenny? Support your answer with evidence from the text. So basically, George says that guys who travel around from ranch job to ranch job become mean, right? That's the word he uses. The loneliness, the constant change kind of affect their personalities and their disposition for the worse. And Slim agrees with him. They kind of bond over this, right? Says that eventually they become so solitary they won't even talk to one another, right? He says something about it seems like everybody in the world's scared of each other, right? And George seems to try to avoid this fate by having Lenny around as he travels. And that's one thing they probably pretty accurately recognize, that they're lucky to have each other, even though it might seem weird to other people, right? Okay, second question, number 2. Candy finally gives in and allows Carlson to take his dog, to put his dog out of his misery, right? Since he's so old. Why doesn't he look at his dog before Carlson takes him? And I think that's a pretty easy question, right? He's just too upset, right? He can't bear to see his dog leave, knowing that he's not going to see him again, and what's about to happen to him. Even though what Carlson is offering is merciful, right? He's not trying to take something away from him or do anything mean. But by looking away, he kind of disengages from what's about to happen. A little bit of a denial, just unable to face up to it, right? It's a really sad moment and kind of, cuts those ties between him and his dog. Number 3, what causes George to change his mind and allow Candy to get involved with the dream of owning a house? Is it simply the fact that Candy has money? Support your answer with evidence from the text. That's a good question. So when he tells George about the money he saved, and again, that was as a compensation for losing his hand in an accident on the farm, he doesn't embrace that idea right away because it's just hard to trust people. But they seem to embrace it when Candy suggests how much more quickly they can make their dream reality if you're involved. And then George realizes that with Candy's money, they wouldn't even have to wait and have this realization like, wow, we could actually really do this right now, right? And they can tell, Candy seems to be like on the level, a good guy. So it seems like their dream could be becoming a reality a lot faster than they ever dreamed, right? All right, number 4, when Slim tells Curly that he's been asking him too often, that he's sick of it, what's he referring to? What is Curly asking him? And why does it make Slim mad? Well, Curly just keeps asking Slim if he knows where his wife is, right? And, does he think that she's cheating on him? Does she want him to think that she's cheating on him? Is she or not? Kind of hard to tell, right? But Slim's irritated because Curly's always asking him, right? So he's partly just irritated with Curly and doesn't understand why he can't keep track of his own wife, but he also seems to kind of take it personally, as if Curly's question is meant to, kind of maybe insinuate that there is something going on between Slim and Curly's wife. But Slim, he ain't having it, right? He's not going to listen to this guy. He doesn't seem to be scared of him, even though he's the boss's son, and he used to be you know, really good boxer or something. So that kind of shows some more characterization about Slim and how he's just a really confident together person. He's not going to be, you know, he's not mean, but he's also not going to be pushed around by anybody. So pretty sympathetic character, right? And then number 5. So at the end of chapter 3, how does Slim convince Curly not to tell anyone that Lenny hurt Curly's hand and support your answer with evidence from the text? So he pretty much threatens him and says that if Curly tries to tell the boss what Lenny did, then Slim and all the other guys will tell the truth across town and embarrass him. This guy's fragile ego. He is not going to let that happen. You know, he says, I won't tell anyone, right? He's kind of in shock, but he recognizes the embarrassment that he would feel then, until everybody's laughing at Curly. So Slim knows that Curly's too proud to admit that he lost a fight, especially to a mentally disabled guy like Lenny. And he wants the truth to be revealed. So we kind of leave off with that. So the prompt was, are Carlson's actions in chapter 3 justified? Is his treatment of Candy as well as the Candy's dog ethical? Why or why not? And support your answer with evidence from the text. It's totally up to you. I would think that probably the majority of the people, even you might say that you couldn't do it, that you couldn't step up and did what Candy did. I don't know. Somebody may have thought he was coming from a selfish angle and that the dog stunk, and maybe he was just thinking about that, but the dog did not seem, you know, happy. I mean, it couldn't really eat anymore, teeth are gone and stuff. And so the important thing is that we keep being presented with situations in which someone is doing some sort of mercy killing, right? So it's got to be some kind of theme or foreshadowing going on there. We don't know what that is unless somebody's told you what happens in the story, but it's you know, it's certainly something that we should think about. And, you know, the ethics of situations like that is certainly seems to be coming into play. So there's that, and then there's, you know, the whole American dream. Is that, you know, is that going to work out? Are they going to get the ranch? Since it seems likely they could pull it off with Candy's money, you know, or is anything going to go wrong? Because that's what they're scared the whole time is going to happen with Lenny. Okay, all for now. See you next time for part 4.